TGC Fam, welcome back to Tall Girl Chronicles. So for today, we have another round of the Tall Girl Chat series, and I'm going to be discussing with a tall guy today some of the differences and similarities that we experience in our life as a tall guy or as a tall female. So if you guys want to see how this discussion goes and who this tall guy is, please stay tuned. Alright guys, so I have Colin John Jenkins here with me today. By the way, Colin, why do you call yourself Colin John Jenkins? Is Colin John your first name or is John your middle name?
John is my middle name. It's an interesting story. Do we have the time?
Yes, we have the time. Carry on.
Sometimes you can have mistaken identity. And I thought my name was not very familiar. I don't still think it is, but there's another Colin Jenkins out there who lived in the same place that I did. Apparently he did something he shouldn't have. And yeah, so from since then I've used my second name right through. Just give everything, please. Just making sure I'm unique. If there's another Colin John Jenkins, I'm gonna put something like Colin John Tashala or Dimbwe Bakar Jenkins, something.
That makes sense, and I'm happy I actually asked that question because I didn't know that there was a whole method behind the madness, essentially.
Oh yes, there is.
So guys, Colin has a very long biography, but I'm just going to give you a little bit of a synopsis. So Colin is an architect, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I go wrong anyway, Colin. So you're an architect, you're a project manager, you're a husband, you're a father, you're a social media addict, you are a small business reviewer, you are an entertainer. What else am I forgetting? I feel like I'm forgetting something else.
I lecture project management at the University of West Indies. I do mentorship, research like that Antigua and Barbuda Sustainable Development Council. We created a think tank. I'm a nerd. Let's just put that broad coverage right there. I'm a nerd.
We like nerds. In 2020, nerds are appreciated and like, so that's okay. So, as I told you before, I have you here today because I just wanted to discuss just some differences between tall girls and tall guys and just how we experience life as being tall. I just kind of want to compare it. For the record, you can just let us know how tall you are and how your life was as a tall person from childhood up until now.
Okay. I am actually 6 feet 4 inches the last time I checked, but somehow I think I grew a little bit more.
I was just about to say, I feel like you're solid 6'5".
I think somebody's lying to me, but for now, let's say it's 6'4". Growing up being tall was interesting. I got that from my mom's side of the family. My dad is like here, and my mom is like yeah. So I got the height from my mom. And growing up, I was always the taller child among all the group of my friends. And so, it was interesting because you shoot up beyond everybody. You got the nicknames like Coconut Tree, Tall Boy, Straw. Anything related to being tall, I got that as a nickname. People expected me to be a great basketball player. They expected me to be into cricket. Anybody that wanted to reach anything in the classroom, they're Colin, come over here. Your legs are long, your feet are long, your hands are long. That whole kind of thing. So growing up was interesting because you were above everybody else. I grew up in a family that had hand-me-downs. So the clothes that my brothers and sisters, my brothers really, would wear, I would get them because, hey, I'm just right there, but they didn't fit for long. So they would go out in the time. And actually, I'm taller than they are. So it was an interesting phenomena. And out of all my mom's kids, there 4 of us, I was the tallest one. So you need not imagine. As for the girlfriend bit, we could get to that later on. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. We'll leave the best for last. But as you talk about clothes and getting hand-me-downs, how was it for you getting clothes as a younger person or as a child? Or even now, really?
Well, now it's not so bad because thank God for the NBA. They have some really tall guys in the NBA. Yes. So they make that apparel and you can buy into that. But sometimes they'd have to make clothes for me. Or I just had to make do with the fact that some of the clothes didn't fit. Like, because I'm this height, I actually have, I think it's a size 13 in slippers, 12 and a half in sneakers. But I needed bigger sneakers than my peers growing up, so it was a task to get them to fit. So sometimes I'll be wearing my brother's shoes, and that's actually another story. I was supposed to have gone to collect a science award in high school. I had on the shoes that was really bigger than what it was supposed to be because it was a hand-me-down. And while I was there walking, going up, doing my thing, the entire sole of the shoe fell off. Flop!
Gosh.
I was like, oh my gosh, I just melted into the concrete, man. It was a struggle. It was a challenge. Did it have an effect on my self-esteem? It did in a way, because I didn't feel like everybody else, you know. But that was mainly in primary school and early high school.
I would say I definitely had similar experiences, but I don't recall my mom or my parents ever getting anything made for me. I just had to wear what it was. So if the pants was too short and you were shooting, you just was gonna killing people dead. So it just is what it is. You weren't gonna get the cutest shoes, you weren't gonna get the in thing or whatever it was. But I kind of just had the same struggles. But I did feel it. I feel like it affected me more so in high school. I guess that's when you want to be cool and, you know, have that kind of vibe. So I feel like it affected me more in high school than when I was a lot younger. But no, I mean, you can get anything on the internet, so it doesn't really bother me too much right now.
I think it would have been better for me in high school if I was more of a sports person. There's an expectation that guys my height, like I mentioned before, would play basketball or let's say volleyball or even cricket, you know. But because I wasn't heavily on the sports side, it seems as if I was wasting my height, you know.
I get you. I totally understand that. So you mentioned that you did martial arts and you got into the military. Do you feel like you came off as intimidating essentially as a tall person, even though you weren't using your height for what people thought you should use it for? Do you ever feel like you were intimidating to other people?
Well, the thing is, when you're doing martial arts and you meet somebody 6'4", you don't necessarily want to run into them.
Yes.
Because of the length of their limbs, you know. Yeah. Look at this. You can't even see my hands through the camera. That's how long. It's like infinity. But even with the military, it's not necessarily a good thing all the time because there's a lot more of you to hide, you know. But in other instances, it can come in handy. So it's always a plus and minus. I know for beds, like we used to sleep on escorts when we in recruit training. The length of my feet never stayed on the bed.
I can't imagine because you're taller than me and I can't imagine.
Right. So my feet were hanging off the bed, and even with regular beds, you know, I have to get queen size or king size, and some rooms that I go in, I have to pay attention. Because I would get, you know, hit my head if I come up too fast. I just have to might be mindful. Yeah. But luckily, being a martial artist helped me to kind of gauge my environment and be a bit more aware, and reflexes and so on were more on par. So that helped somewhat.
What about your friends though? Did you find that you had friends who were as tall as you, or most of your friends were short or extremely short, I should say? Because I found like a lot of short females, not the average height females, but shorter females tend to stick on to me and always want to hold on to my hand. I know guys are not holding on to guys' hand, but I just experienced a lot of shorter than normal females always wanting to be my friend up until today. So did you have that same experience, or is that not the same for men? Tall men, I should say.
For guys, your friends, you know, we don't have that same pressure on women as men do with height. You know, I this is me going out on a limb here. I think women that are taller may somewhat be a little intimidating to some men, because they figure, okay, well, I can't look down on her. I can't look straight into her eyes. If she puts on heels, she's going to be looking down on me. And you know, some of us have some very fragile egos.
Very fragile. No, we're not going to talk about
that. but for the men and friendship, we don't necessarily see that. I mean, you have a tall guy that's a friend of yours. He's going to come in handy. He's going to be able to pick something, climb a tree and get something, be the one to be used as the shield, or even be the one to get the ball to play defense on a basketball court. He's going to come in handy. So we don't necessarily have that sort of pressure on us. And majority of the times, most of my friends, they're shorter than I am. They're generally shorter than I am.
I guess there's just a difference in terms of women and men when it comes to friends, and the reason why you'd find a shorter female sticking to a taller female is just naturally different. Men are not thinking about things like that. But one thing that I know I've always experienced is like when I see another tall woman out there, I get excited. I don't know if men get excited, but I just want to take a picture with them. I'm just so happy that I'm not the only tall person in the room. Is it the same when you see somebody who is tall or taller than you, that you get this kind of excitement inside, even though you're not necessarily going up to them, but you just feel just happy on the inside, a little tingly feeling, just saying, yes, I'm not the only tall person here.
No, I actually don't feel that way. If we actually start to speak, we might trade a bit of jokes about finding beds or shoes and stuff like that. But no, generally not. And some of the persons who were younger than I growing up, and I've met them now, some of them are basketball players and so on, they're taller than I am. They shoot past me. And I look up on them and like, thank you, Jesus. There are people taller than me. I'm so happy. You know, in the Caribbean.
Don't deny it.
Yeah. And I think it really hits home when you do videos, because as you know, I do videos and stuff. And sometimes when I'm filming, I'm like, okay, the camera's too close. I have to really go way back to get my full shot. Or when I'm taking pictures with my wife, it becomes present just how tall you are when you're taking pictures and filming with people, or when you go into a bus. It's so much stories, because I studied in Cuba, and the majority of Cubans, they are on average way shorter than I am. So the taxis, the transportation, oh man, I was like a sardine tin down there getting back and forth in the cars and stuff. So trying to get back and forth with the transportation, that was a challenge, you know. They definitely, it was like, wow, yo, you're really tall, you're really, really tall.
Talking about that, do you feel like people are rude to you in public about your height? Like when they see you, they kind of give you this up and down stare, or even make a rude comment in any way? Are people rude about it?
No, what I just generally get is the nicknames. They're like, tall boy. Like they don't stop to think you have a name. They just associate, oh, tall boy, you know. And is it body shaming? Some people may argue about that, because it depends on how persons feel about it. Because it's the same way you say fat girl or fat woman, or you know, big girl, and some people don't like it. I tell you the truth, I don't always like it. I really don't always like it, but I've grown accustomed to it. I just understand that sometimes how people identify other persons, and I just let it be. But when I say, tall boy, I know. I'm like, okay, I'm 6'4", I'm not that tall. The NBA has people almost 7 feet. It ain't that serious. You know what I'm saying? It's not that big of a deal. But because I am slim, you know, it somewhat highlights just how tall I am.
Yeah,
that happens. It highlights how tall I am because I'm a slender person.
I feel like generally when a man is tall, it's just kind of accepted. Like when you're tall, you're like a gem. When you're a tall man, I should say, you're a gem because you can play basketball, you can play all these sports. But like when you're a tall female, it's like, first of all, people just always think you're a man first. They think you're some kind of transgender. They ask you some kind of random question about being a man. It happens. Listen, it happens. They think you're a man, or they just make some kind of rude comment. I think it affects women's self-esteem more probably than a man being told that they're tall or they're giant or they're giraffe. Usually we get giraffe. I don't know if men get giraffe, but we get giraffe for sure. So I definitely think it affects our self-esteem. Me so much, I've never really had anybody come up to me and be rude about my height. I have to be honest. I do get little kids though. Little kids stare at me like I'm the weirdest thing they've ever seen. I don't know if you have that, but little kids just look up like they just look so scared of me.
They see me as the ladder. They tell me in the air, I'm like, woo! Okay, so they associate my height with fun and frolic. But no, I don't have that challenge, and you have. That's what I'm saying. I think it's more challenging for you. But whenever I meet tall women, I generally think about models. And that's why I have to tell everybody on your channel that I thought that you would have been a great model for, let's say, Gucci or Prada or any. Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
My wall.
Exactly. I thought that you'd have been a great model. You have a great body, and I think women that are taller, they carry themselves with grace. And yeah. I don't think men intimidate them as much as they intimidate men. You know,
so I will accept that. Definitely intimidate men. That we know. I don't even have to argue that point. It just is what it is. You were talking about your son in school. What about when you were in school? Did you find that you have any issues with people bullying you? I know the name calling is a form of bullying, but in any other way, was there any type of bullying?
No, not generally.
Or anything that affected your self-esteem, essentially, as it relates to your height.
I wasn't the most muscular guy in class, but primary school, high school, that wasn't me. Mm-hmm. And so around my time, there were a lot of novels going around. I don't know if you're familiar with them. The undercover, there was this strapping guy with his pecs out, and the woman was on his chest and she was looking up into his eyes, and they had the flowers or the old house in the background and that kind of stuff. So I was one of the boxes that was ticked. Height, yes. Muscles, oh,
no.
Yeah. Facial hair, that was the only box I got ticked. That was the only box I got ticked. So I mean, it was rough because I didn't have the mass to go with the height. And like I mentioned, when you're that tall, everything gets elongated almost. It's like your muscles for your legs, like you're doing squats or quads or anything like that, your pecs, listen, when you go to the gym, it's almost as if you work twice as hard to have the same look as a shorter person. Mm-hmm. Because the range that you have to use to get these muscles out, it's a lot, especially squats. Look at how high and how low you'd have to go to do a deep squat compared to a person that's much shorter. Yeah. So it's a challenge to really have let me tell you, if you meet someone 6'4" and over that has a great physique, that person is blessed, or they worked really hard. Mm-hmm.
I definitely think I had body image issues when I was younger because I was not as thick as I am now, even though people think I'm slim now. I was a lot slimmer, and then my neck was very long. And I'm still uncomfortable with my neck now, but once I have hair like this, I'm fine. But I was literally a giraffe. I would class myself as a giraffe when I was younger because I just had a very long neck, very skinny, swimming in my clothes. I mean, it didn't play on my mind too much. Like, I was just skinny, and that it was just is what it is. I didn't think anything of it. I don't recall anybody ever making me feel uncomfortable. I feel like people were more scared of me because I was tall, so they didn't even bother to try and bully me. It's just, she tall, me not tall, but she all right. Me don't want to get bang off. I really didn't have that issue in terms of bullying, I should say, as it relates to my height, but I was definitely conscious of how skinny I was and how my neck was like a big thing for me, for sure. I know you're married, but when it came to women now, do you feel like a woman would just walk up to you and start talking to you? Do you feel like you had to put yourself out there? Because for me, of course, men are intimidated by me naturally. So you very rarely find somebody just come up to me and talk to me. So how was that for you as it relates to women prior to marriage?
I like that. Prior to marriage, interesting. The club life. I like to dance a lot. I used to go to the club a lot. Coming out of school, that was interesting because dancing in and of itself was a bit of a challenge. So imagine I'm 6'4", and somebody in there that I admire is like 5 feet some, you know, and you know how Caribbean people dance. So you're trying to balance your leg muscles with going down to a height with them because you don't necessarily want to be dancing direct to them because your anatomy
don't need to explain.
needs to be in the right place, you know what I'm saying? You don't want a gun in your side, you know what I'm saying? So it was like that. That was so some women, they were okay that they think men that are tall are attractive. But when it came down to certain things, it was awkward, you know? Sexual intercourse is like that as well.
Awkward?
It can be if the person is really short. Like certain positions, it's just out of, it's not going to be, you know, it's not going to be. Like take for instance, they have a lot of funny videos, and we see it all the time, where they have 2 different breeds of dogs. One is big and one is small, and they're trying to get their thing on, and you just look back and you laugh. And it's not very dissimilar from tall people and shorter people. So there is kind of, it can get tricky. It can get tricky. It really can. So women are good with you, but you just have to be skillful to navigate these aspects because it can become very awkward if you're not careful with it.
I agree with you. I agree.
That's a political.
My share of awkward moments with short men, I should say, when dancing, but they do what they gotta do, and I do what I gotta do to get down there. So it works out in the end, but it can be very awkward. And I'm it now because I have back problems.
Oh, that I think that's why I like ballroom dancing. You know, because yes, it's ideal the person has a slightly difference of height from you, but ballroom dancing, you're allowed to carry, you know. In the Caribbean, we do a lot of gyrating and what we call whining. And so you have to kind of be in the moment and feel the person. With ballroom and Latin and so on, you can be at a distance and you could do your thing. So you can practically dance with almost anybody, any height. But when we're doing our kind of dance, it gets a little tricky. So that has been my experience. And like I mentioned, sexual intercourse, yeah, I've had some, yeah.
Believe out that. Before we close out, though, I want to know, how did you even get into ballroom dancing? Is that happening in Antigua? Like, wait, how did that come around?
What had happened, I was in the military at the time, and the major that was there at the time said, you know, they're trying ballroom dancing. I said, that sounds great. And so my best friend and I, we went and we started with the waltz because, you know, military officers, sometimes they have this, well, when you're in the military, sometimes you are expected to go to dinners, and it'd be nice if you could do some of the classic stuff. And so we just figured it was a good thing to learn, but I really ended up liking it. So we did ballroom dancing in terms of the waltz, the foxtrot, the quick step, the cha-cha-cha, the samba. And it was really nice because, like I mentioned, you didn't have to be up under the person all the time. You had a safe distance. I felt comfortable because you could now carry the person and read off of their movements rather than in the dance hall when we're doing skin to skin, body to body kind of thing. I liked it. I really do. And the height of the person wasn't so much of a big deal.
Oh, okay, that's good. Well, it sounds like you need to start a class, Colin. Come on.
That's another thing about being
start a class.
tall. I have arthritis right now.
Okay.
Arthritis with my knee.
Okay, I'm pretty sure I have arthritis in my knee, back, wrist, everywhere. So another tall people problem.
Yeah.
Just to close out, is there any advice you'd give to maybe tall guys, tall people in general? Just anything about being tall and any major struggle that you particularly had. Any advice that you would give to them on how to handle it?
There's a show on television that was epic until season 8. Let me put that disclaimer.
Okay.
Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
In Game of Thrones, there's a character. His name is Tyrion. Most persons know Tyrion.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyrion was talking to the quote-unquote bastard of Winterfell, Jon Snow.
Mm-hmm.
And Jon was upset because everybody was making fun of him, saying that he's a bastard and he won't get his heir to the throne because the other brothers came before him and all of that. And Tyrion was talking to him, and Tyrion said to him,
"Let me give you some advice, bastard. Never forget what you are. The rest of the world will not. Wear it like armor, and it can never be used to hurt you."
You would have accepted that as something that is part of you, who makes you who you are. And I think we need to do that. I'm tall, and I've accepted it as part of who I am as a person. So I would not want an inch to come off. Mm-hmm. Even though I'm hitting my heads, or sometimes I can't bend down as low anymore, or can't find the right jeans for me, or anything like that. It defines who I am. So I've taken on something that could potentially be an issue for someone else, and I've made it my armor. I've accepted it myself. And if a midget could be saying this to a regular height person, why can't I take that advice? So that's what I would say to persons.
That is true, and I think that's a good message. I think tall people just have to get to the point where they just are able to literally just accept yourself for who you are and just find a way to embrace yourself and just be elegant with it. Just be the best tall person you can be. I mean, there's really no better way. There's no point in worrying about the things that you can't change. If you can make it better, make it better. But if you can't change it, just embrace it. So I think that's a good message to just share with everybody. Guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this episode of Tall Girl Chat. I really enjoyed having Colin with his stories, and I know he has more stories to tell. So I'm inviting you back publicly. I'm going to invite you back with your wife, because I want to do a couples tall guy, tall girl, short girls, try to figure out why the short girls keep snatching out tall guys. I mean, I just want to know why, So make sure you tell the missus she's invited for that one.
All right, okay, that'd be great.
But if you guys enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, turn your post notifications on so that you can get a notification every time I post a new video. Bye, TGC Fam.